To learn to live the off-grid lifestyle and to be inspired to live your dreams, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Click the bell notification. It's all free. Yesterday, I showed you that we were butchering our chickens. Of course, I didn't show or demonstrate how to do that. I butchered 4 chickens. So it was after it was all said and done, I had 20 pounds of meat, and we already had a small chicken that I butchered several weeks ago because it had crop in the freezer. So I'm not sure how much that one weighed, maybe a pound. So today I got up at 6:30 this morning. The first thing I do is I turn on the stove. Last night I had the pots filled up with water. They were sitting here ready to go. So right now I am boiling the chicken, and I'm going to wait until the meat starts to fall off the bone. Around 9 or 9:30, usually the meat is falling off pretty good. It looks like, actually, it could be falling off now. It's looking pretty good. What we'll do is we'll take it out of there. We'll take all the meat off the bone, put the meat into the jars. We'll put the liquid into the jars. This is called hot packing. So you got to make sure your jars are hot. We'll use our water heater. We have an on-demand water heater, and it gets really hot. You can adjust the temperature on the fly. So this is the water heater, the bottom portion of it. It has its hoses coming in. And so what it is it's ran off a 20-pound propane tank. And so when you kick it on, you'll hear the flame kick on. So listen carefully. You might be able to see it in here. So the flame is on. And then when you shut it off, the flame shuts off. So I can turn this temperature up on the fly. And it's just fantastic. It's much better than a house water heater. This one is almost 4 years old now, I think. I have bought a backup one, and it was like $150. So what I'll do is I'll wash the jars, and then I'll fill my chest cooler up with hot water. I'll put those jars in that hot water. That way the jars are nice and hot, and when I put the chicken and the chicken broth in there, the jars won't crack. What they suggest you do in the instructions is you put the jars in a dishwasher and run it without soap and anything, and that heats them up as well. I don't have a dishwasher, so we use the water heater. Okay, so I've washed all the jars. There's 20 jars, 10 for each canner. I got 2 canners. Then I put the jars in my cooler. I've put extremely hot water in there. Perhaps you can see it steam. And so this cooler will keep all that heat in there until I'm ready to use them. The pans that I washed the dishes in, I washed those. Everything was washed. Okay, so that was a whole chicken. And I was able to pull it up, and it just broke right in half. So that means it's falling off the bone. That's exactly the way I wanted it. We're gonna debone the chicken. It's not a very difficult process. It's hot. That's about the worst thing about it. But you just simply take a piece of chicken, and I got a pot down here that's gonna catch the chicken, and you just strip it off the bone, just like that. That's all there is to it. If you cook it long enough, that works really well. If you undercook it, which actually the instruction says to do, if you undercook it, it's really hard. You lose a lot of meat. So I don't see the point in undercooking it. Okay, so we got all our chicken deboned. So I'm gonna get my jar out. Now that's a hot jar. We're just gonna fill it right up to the neck here. Now, what we'll have to do is, as we fill the jars, we're going to determine whether we have too much chicken or not enough chicken to fill all 20 jars. You want to fill the canners. Otherwise, it's just a waste of propane. So each canner holds 10 jars. If I have too much, then I can probably squeeze a little bit more into the jar, and I'll have less liquid in it. Or I won't have enough, and then I can take some out and make them a little less in each jar. It usually balances out. Now, if I don't have enough even after that, then I'll just make chicken broth. I'll fill these jars up with chicken broth. After I get all this canned, I will can probably 14 jars of chicken broth. So now you can see it's right up to the collar. Okay, so we got 17 jars filled. That left 3 that we have to use for broth. So I butchered 4 chickens and we had a little bit of 1 left over, maybe a pound of chicken. So that left 3 jars. So if I'd have done another chicken, it would have been too much. So next time I think I'll butcher 5 chickens. That should equal us out pretty good, considering these are the largest chickens. Next time I butcher, they probably won't be as large as these. So I'll do 5 and we'll see where we go from there. But that is really close. Only having 3 jars, I'm not dissatisfied with that at all. So not a lot of empty spaces. So we'll do broth with the pint jars. That's 3 pint jars. And then after we're done processing these chicken jars, we will then do broth in quart jars. We'll do 14 of those. Okay, so I'm going to start filling the jars up with broth. Put my liquid in it. I have my broth pan over here on the side. I'm not going to lift it up. I have my turkey baster, so what I'm going to do is suck up the broth with the turkey baster and bring it over. And the reason I do this is because there's a skim of oil on top of the broth. If I were just to dump that in there, the oil would get into the jars, and you're not supposed to do that. Again, I'm not going to go any further than the collar of the jar. So right there, you can see. And then you take this and you jab down in there to remove the air bubbles that are going to form inside of it. That way it makes sure that you have enough liquid in each jar. Okay, so the next thing you got to do is you got to wipe this rim off on top of the jar. And what I use is vinegar, straight vinegar. I just use my washcloth. I saturate my washcloth with vinegar. And that removes all the grease and oils and particles. That way when the lid is put on top of the jar, it gets a good seal. Okay, so before you put the lids on, you got to put them in a pan of water and you let them simmer. Just simmer. Don't want to get it to a rolling boil or anything. That softens the sealing surface on these lids. Now, the other day someone told me that you don't have to boil them anymore. They marry out a new material. So I went and researched it, and there is a new lid now that, yes, you can avoid the boiling aspect of it, or the simmering, or the heating, or whatever you want to call it. However, these are still the old brand, so I'm still required to boil them. Okay, once you have your lids steamed, then you got your little knife here. You can buy this with any canning equipment. Buy it on Amazon. And the front end we use to aerate the jars. The back end has a magnet on it. You simply pick your lid up, set it on your jar, make sure you don't have 2, and then you're going to take your ring, hand tighten. Just barely tighten it like that. And then we're going to put it in our canner. All right, before you put the lid onto the canner, you want to take this ring off. It's a gasket ring, and you want to lubricate it. I take vegetable oil, and I got my gloves on again. I just kind of rub the vegetable oil into my hand here, pour the vegetable oil in my hand, and then I just rub the gasket all the way around, like that. Goes in real easy. That's it. Okay, so now I'm going to put the lid on, and there is an arrow right here on this handle, little mark. Then there's an arrow on the canner as well. You got to find it. It's right here. I doubt you're going to be able to see it on the camera, but it's right there. You line those 2 arrows up. It falls into place. Okay, so you can see the steam's coming out now. And it's coming out of both of them. So I'm going to time it for 10 minutes, and then I'll put the little jiggler on. Okay, so it has been steaming for 10 minutes. So now I'm going to put on my jiggler. I'm above 1,000 feet, so I have to have 15 pounds. If you're below 1,000 feet, you're supposed to have 10 pounds. So I'm going to put the jiggler on. Okay, so now you can see that both of the canners have enough pressure that it's making the weights jiggle. Okay, so it has been pressure cooking for 75 minutes, or pressure canning, whatever you want to call it, for 75 minutes. So now I'm going to turn off the flame. And I'm going to let it cool until this tab falls down. When that tab falls down, that means that I can safely remove the jiggler and the lid. If I do it before that tab falls down, then that means there's still pressure in the canner and it's going to, blow the lid off on me. Okay, so you should be able to see now that the tab has fallen on that one. It's still up on this one. So now I can remove the jiggler from the top of this one and the lid. It's hard to do with one hand. I'm holding the camera with one hand. So I'm going to take the lid off. Steam is going to burn me. And I'm going to set them over here on a little rug that I got. And that will keep it from cracking when it hits the cool table. And so as I pull these out, they'll start to cool and the lids will start to pop down. As they pop down, then you know they've sealed. So this actually produce more meat than what we can buy at the store. So what we buy at the store is 30 pounds of legs and thighs. We debone it, we take the skin off. That gives us 20 jars. Well, here we had 20 pounds. So that was 30-pound bags. It's 10 pounds, we get 3 bags. So here we had 20 pounds and it gave us 17 jars. So almost the same amount of jars, but a lot less weight of the chicken. And the reason is there's so little waste from these chicken because it's all breast meat with these chicken. Whereas with the legs and thighs, you had all that skin, you had all the bone. So I hope I can inspire you to be self-sufficient when you're living your dream. Thanks for watching.